Hello, everybody. My name's James, and FPL content is back with 18 days until the restart of Premier League football. Yes, it feels a bit incredible as we await World Cup quarterfinals. But Clash of the Correspondents returns. Let me introduce you to our Chelsea correspondent, Gary Mantle. How are you, Gary?
Hello, good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. For the benefit of those on the audio who can't see it, nice jumper, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm expecting if Pete Featherstone looks at the YouTube after I gave him pelters on his for the Argentina game for the watch along, then I'm expecting to get something back from him.
Can I be honest, Gary? We was drinking that night. I can't remember what Gary Peter was wearing. I've no recollection. I
No,
just
this
remember.
was at the watch along.
For the watch along.
Yeah, the
I
one where
wasn't
you
drink.
didn't watch along.
I was going to say I wasn't drinking for that, and I can't remember that either. And our Bournemouth correspondent Neil Grover's in. How are you, Neil?
Hello. Yeah, really good. I feel underdressed, to be honest, at this point.
Right. Okay. I mean, I haven't dressed up, mate. I just got a little cardigan on. Gary has put on a Chelsea away jumper from circa the mid 90s, a period, Gary, where you were pretty shit. Let's be honest. Are you shit again now?
Yeah, pretty much.
What's going on?
No.
Or what was going on? I know it's difficult because it feels like our clubs haven't played for a month, which is about right nearly. But obviously the run you were having wasn't great. How are you feeling about Potter and the way it started now?
Well, the way it started was actually all right. It's only right at the end that it started going wrong. The only game that I thought, right, this is really bad was Brighton away. Other than that, like we lost to two teams that the way that things were going with the momentum and everything, to be honest, I thought we were probably going to lose to them. I don't like to blame injuries. I don't think you can blame injuries for losing 4-1 at Brighton. Doesn't matter how many players are out. We shouldn't be letting in 4 goals at Brighton, even though we scored 2 of them ourselves.
Yeah, it does help.
But I do think it's starting to take its toll. Just one of the things I keep hearing is, Potter doesn't know his best team. I think he probably does know his best team. He just can't pick it because every week somebody new gets injured. We can't get this consistency going. The last time that we were good, Reece James was in the team. The last decent game we played was Milan away, and that's when he got injured.
There was early red card in that game, I want to say, though.
That did help. Tomori getting sent off, but we did also beat them at home.
Yeah, convincingly.
The week before. Yeah, exactly.
But it started all right, didn't it? It was like 7 or 8 in all comps unbeaten, wasn't it, under Potter? But since the draw at Brentford, you were a little fortunate that night. Then there was the draw with United, where, to be fair, Potter changed it quite early, didn't he? Because United were dominating in the first half hour. He changed to a diamond. You got well beat at Brighton. And then I think you're right. Yeah, on form, I would have predicted you to lose at home to Arsenal and away to Newcastle. But the manner of it still didn't feel very Chelsea. I described after you lost to Arsenal as it being the weakest I'd seen of a Chelsea team in terms of physically strong. I always feel no matter where you're at, you're physically strong and imposing and difficult to play against. You weren't. Is that a problem at the moment?
Maybe, but that's like you're thinking of like the traditional Chelsea, the Mourinho Chelsea, where like 7 players were over 6 foot, and we had all the tools. We are a different team now. It would be fine if we kept hold of the ball, but we can't. So, for example, one of the tactics that we use away at Brighton is we had Sterling and Pulisic as the 2 wide players. And again, we're not going to call them wing backs. They're sort of almost wingers.
They were just wingers. They didn't play as wing backs, mate.
No. Well, that's fine if you're not defending. But when you're defending, there's 2 massive holes there. So if we've got the ball, this is all fine. This doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how physical we are. It doesn't matter how high we are because we're the ones in control. If we're not controlling the game, and we haven't been controlling those games, that's when we're in trouble.
You happy with Potter?
Yeah. Our fan base is very split. It's split on like a number of issues.
That's probably where I'd want to get to, because I know you were very clear that you're happy to be patient and stuff. And I know you still are, and you realise this is a process and are not in a change the manager. But there's a lot of Chelsea fans for 20 years or so have become accustomed to this ain't working, change it. And it works for you as a model. As some fans already there.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it did work for us, but this was a different owner. He thought about things completely differently. We have had a complete change. I know it's difficult to like separate the two, but we've taken out everybody that was sort of running the club from above in the Abramovich era. They've all gone. I think it was very difficult to actually do what we were doing under Abramovich. I think part of the reason that other teams used to hate it was because it worked for us. And nobody else could do it. Other teams can try and change managers, but nobody's ever been able to change managers with the success that we've had. Maybe, obviously, you could argue someone like Real Madrid, but certainly in this country, it's never happened. So, what we're trying to build towards is this, I would say, like a Liverpool type model. I think what's annoying people at the moment is that while we're doing this, Arsenal are top of the league and winning at Stamford Bridge. Tottenham are winning with last-minute goals every week. So you're above us and we're floundering. I was wondering if part of the reason that things worked a bit better for Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool was when he came in, their two biggest rivals, Everton and Man United, were absolutely nowhere. So there's no additional pressure from other fans. There's nobody winding you up saying, oh, look at us, we're doing this, we're doing that. You've got that time to like build. We don't feel like we've got that time because while we're doing this, everybody else is like accelerating away from us. Newcastle,
yeah, I get that.
Us.
I mean, I've spoken about. I mean, to be honest, there's angst at Tottenham at the moment, and part of that is how well Arsenal are doing. And I speak so much about how those two clubs affect each other in terms of the psyche and the mentally. It had not really occurred to me that was possibly happening at your place as well. But yeah, that makes sense. Probably even more so looking at Tottenham going, not even playing well, but yeah, winning a lot of games late on and stuff. No, I get that. Neil, would you, as a neutral, would you see Chelsea as top four challengers at the moment?
No, I think they're still, they're going to be in Europe, but will they be in the Champions League? My gut says no at the moment, but I think it's part of that process. You kind of have to strip it back to go again and get used to that, that process. Is
that how you see it, Gary?
I think we're going to struggle to make top four, but I don't think we're as far out of it as it's being made out. So if we'd done this pod like a month before the end, we would have been thinking very differently. Potter was like unbeaten. I know you said it started at Brentford. It actually started at Villa. We should have lost it. Well, we shouldn't necessarily have lost, but we should have conceded at Villa. That was when Kepa kept us in it.
Yes. Yeah, he did 3 great saves in the first half, wasn't it? Yeah.
That's right. So like this is when people were about to go on their wild card. It was going, oh, I'll bring in Kepa. I'm like, this isn't going to continue. Like this, he doesn't do this every week. He just did it for 2 weeks in a row and hasn't done it since. Well, he's injured now as well anyway. But I think hopefully after Christmas, hopefully we'll get a few players back and we'll start seeing more like the real Chelsea.
I definitely wouldn't say you're not challengers. I mean, that feels ridiculous. You win 3-4 games in a row, you're absolutely, you might even be back in the top 4. I think it's fair to say at the moment you're probably outsiders. But I think that narrative can very quickly change. And there's a couple of fixtures right at the start with respect, Neil. Bournemouth at home, Forest away. You got to be looking at that straight away, Gary, and thinking 6 points, haven't you?
I am. And then exactly. If we don't get those 6 points, then we're like, okay, yeah, we are in a bit of trouble. Not trouble, but in terms of top 4, if we don't get 6 points in those games, then you can almost write it off. We're not even halfway through the season yet. So there's no way we can...
8 points behind Tottenham with a game in hand, 5 points behind United, same played, 1 behind Liverpool, same played. I mean, it's not going to take that much. It's just going to take you yourselves to have that own run. I think the problem is 21 points from 14. It's a long way back towards 2 points per game. You almost have to be winning like 7 in 8 or something to get back to that sort of level, which I think is going to be challenging. But yeah, the fixture list is really attractive, which I want to certainly come back around to. Neil, you've got a permanent manager in Gary O'Neill. Yeah. I think most of us would think has done pretty well since the departure of Scott Parker. But I sense that you're not happy.
It felt a bit like he was the that'll do appointment, as opposed to perhaps what the carrots that were dangled, particularly with the subcontext of the new ownership structure coming in. And I do know from other sports I follow, he's quite an not aggressive, that's the wrong term. He's adventurous with his appointments and things like that. And it felt a little bit like the Gary O'Neill one was a little bit like, okay, well, you're the man in the seat now. So I think he's, I want to say he's done very, very well since Parker decided he didn't want the job anymore the day after we podcasted. But since then, obviously he's brought us right back into the fight, which fabulous. We've had some really good results, but I do think we tapered off a little bit, and it really took some of the gloss off of it. When you look at the two more painful ones recently of Leeds and obviously yourself, Spurs, losing back-to-back games from being ahead and then losing like we did.
You're the first team ever to do it, mate, to be two
brilliant.
goals up in consecutive games and lose. It's the first time it's ever happened.
Well, happy days. I was in a bar surrounded by Leeds fans as well when that happened. So that was amazing. But I think some of it was a little bit of naivety exposed with some of his tactics, and I think he sets the game up really, really well. I think that's why we've done well coming into games. But I think he's a bit slow and perhaps inexperienced, maybe the better way of putting it, to make game changes on the fly. So when he comes up against a Conte, who is obviously a fabulous manager, who's making those tweaks and changes, he doesn't know how to react, and I think that's what's been exposed a little bit. Now, obviously,
just to jump in, Gary, doesn't that come down a little bit in terms of squad depth and personnel? Going back to what you said in the summer, like if everyone's fit, team's decent, but actually when you're looking at the bench to make changes, that's difficult.
It is, and he perhaps hasn't used that as much as he needed to. Like Anthony hasn't perhaps played as much as people would have expected. Now there is some things going on there. He's coming up for. He's out of contract in the summer and all of that sort of stuff. It will be very interesting to see how we address the squad depth, because now, looking back now with the context we now have that the Demin is selling the club, it kind of makes sense that we didn't do very much in the summer. I do expect that will change in January, presuming that all of the paperwork and things go through. And as it stands today, his investment firm has announced it in their quarterly reports, but the Premier League and all of that hasn't rubber stamped it yet. We're expecting that before the end of the World Cup, though. So and I do expect there will be a large move in January for a player of some sort that will be a statement piece.
Okay, so you expect that takeover to go through presumably before Christmas, then?
Yes. Yeah.
It feels like it's been dragging for 6 to 8 weeks or so now. It feels on the outside.
Yeah, so it's going through the fit and proper persons tests at the moment. All indications is there's no problems with that. It's just I suspect the Premier League has taken a couple of weeks off. Everyone's gone on holiday because of the World Cup and all of that. So we're still within that sort of expected timeline, but it should be imminent, really.
I feel like asking Gary a question because he just sneezed. Does it feel, Neil? Does it feel a little bit underwhelming with Gary O'Neill, the fact he's got it permanently because of Marcelo Bielsa, yes, and it felt like it was going to happen? Is that why? If they just appointed O'Neill at the point that after you beat Everton 3-0, because it's easy to say after the 2 defeats against Leeds and Tottenham, you beat Everton comfortably. That's your most recent result.
Yep.
If you'd have been appointed on the Monday afterwards, does that feel better than what it does now because you had a little bit of period where you're like, oh my God, we're getting Bielsa ball. This is quite exciting.
I think, yes, there's an element of that. But I also think if there was a decision that we wanted to keep O'Neill, and that wouldn't have been a bad decision prior to sort of the West Ham game, we were in really good form. We hadn't lost to teams outside of the Big Six. Why did we take so long to come to that decision? if that was what's going to happen. I do suspect there's part of the who was in charge, whose call was it to make. But I just think it felt like it just because it dragged on so long to then go, oh well, it's his job anyway. It just felt. I think you're right. Perhaps a little bit of a letdown. I do think it's not just myself in the fan base that thinks, was it time to say, well, thank you very much, but we've got someone perhaps a bit more experienced. Again, I think, like you said, the fan base is quite split, like between people that are like, yeah, he's done really well, and those that are like, well, he's done well, but is he the man to keep us up this year? And that's got to be the end goal.
I guess you're giving someone their first job in management. There isn't a way to know, is there? Gary, how do you see Bournemouth? Is there? I think there's a perception from most neutrals that they'll probably still go down. Seems to be the perception from most. I think they're second favourites with the bookies behind Forest to finish bottom still. How do you see it?
I don't think a point in. I've got nothing against Gary O'Neill, but that's not the kind of a point that makes you think, oh yeah, this lot are going to stick in now. This lot are going to become a lot tougher. It doesn't feel like this is giving them more chance of staying up. Put it that way.
That fair, Neil?
Yeah. I think that's exactly it. It's with some of the managers, and I'm not saying I wanted Dyke because I absolutely didn't. I think that would totally go against the ethos of Bournemouth. But there were appointments that were rumoured outside of Bielsa that I would have much preferred. But the decision's been made now, and I'll back him. Back him until something else changes my opinion. Otherwise, he's the Bournemouth manager, and that's it is what it is.
What's the ethos of Bournemouth?
So it's the community feel of the club, which that in itself Dyke probably would have been okay with, and that's what Parker didn't crucially get, and I think that's why he was sacked. To be honest, he didn't get that side of things. The sort of more we play the ball on the ground, pass it around. We always used to sing under Eddie that we play out from the back, with pace and attack, which O'Neill has somewhat brought back. Although now we do have what the sort of player that Eddie could never seem to get in a target man, plan B, battering ram, or whatever you want to say up front, who's actually can score goals, which is amazing, except against England, which was hilarious after his comments. I've never wanted a Bournemouth player to not score.
Let's not dig out the Welsh, honestly. Let it go, mate.
But yeah, so I think that's the ethos. I think the fan base would not have been happy with Dyke Ball.
Okay, fair enough. Tactically, I found really interesting. I obviously watched the game you lost to us, and I watched all of the game back, the game at Leeds, which I'd probably after Newcastle Man City is probably the second most I've enjoyed of a football match this season. And for the first hour, you had a better team, mate. And you played a different system in both games with very similar personnel. At Leeds, you played basically a flat 4-4-2. And against us, you played a hybrid three at the back that changed. And Tavernier and Smith both played on different sides in both games. So he showed me he's got tactical flexibility. And we must remember that you got 3-1 up and 2-0 up, respectively, in those two games, and deserved to do so at the time. By the end, we obviously had a number of efforts. We basically played against you for 25 minutes and won, and it wasn't too dissimilar with Leeds. The Leeds came with a real onslaught. Once they got back to 3-2, it became inevitable. And it felt that way against us, I think. Once we scored the first, I thought, these are going to retreat really deep here. But he has shown, Neil, that he's got something tactically. I think he has.
No, I think he has. And that's what I mean. He sets up the games, and how he sets us up for the start and the of the game. I think he's really good. He's obviously the scouting he's doing or whatever he's doing pre-match is really good. But then I think around that 60-minute mark, when managers tend to start to go, right, okay, I need to tweak something, or maybe bring some fresh legs on, or tweak the system. He then doesn't seem to respond to that so well. We saw it against Southampton as well. He didn't really know what to do when his first tactic didn't work. and I think that's inexperience. I think there are ways you can address that, and he has been trying to bring in, because we still don't know his full coaching staff yet. He's been trying to bring in some experienced heads. There was talk of Neil Critchley, which isn't happening, but that's the sort of person he's going after. So people that have been there, done that, and then maybe able to bring that in. So if he can get that, I think then we could be onto something. And again, look, Bournemouth have got a history of giving managers their first appointment, and traditionally it's been in the lower leagues when there's not 200 million on the line or whatever the figure is nowadays. But it is the Bournemouth way, I suppose. So
yeah, let's give it a chance. I think on the outside, we'd look at it and go, he walked into that off the back of that 9-0 at Liverpool. The position that you're in the league to be outside the bottom three right now, I think it's pretty impressive, mate. And actually, in many other seasons, you'd be a little bit more comfortable than what you do look. It's others down the bottom have had some good results as well, which means it's really kind of condensed across sort of 8 or 9 teams at the moment.
Yeah.
Gary, I'm going to give you a chance to think about injuries because I know you've got a number. Neil, Neto, how far away is he? Do we expect him to be back in goal for the game against Chelsea in game week 17?
I haven't heard anything. My understanding, so they've done a warm weather camp, as many clubs have done. I haven't seen pictures of him, but to be honest, the World Cup's been on. I haven't been trawling through them all like perhaps normally I would have done. My understanding is he went to that and was training. I don't know today how close he is, but I suspect he might be. There's no indication to say he won't be.
Are you fingers crossed that he is?
I think I don't want to say fingers crossed because he's better than Travers, but I think Travers has got a bad rep after the 9-0. But the 9-0 was absolutely not on Travers. It was just bad luck, really.
No, it wasn't. But a couple of the goals in those defeats of Leeds and Tottenham were.
Yes, I think that's fair. We're talking about a keeper here that's I can't remember how old he is. I think he's like 22 or so. He's young. He's young, and he's in his first real season as a Premier League goalie. I know he did come on prior, but this is his first season as a Premier League goalie. He's got a long way to go. I think he will be a fabulous goalkeeper when he matures a bit, but he still. Some of his command of the area and things isn't there, but yeah. So to go back to your original question, if Neto plays, I'm more confident of a result.
I would be for you as well. Yeah, I think Neto's done pretty well in goal actually, and I think Travers. The problem you had was he obviously got really, really deep in those 2 games that we've mentioned, and he wasn't comfortable on the set pieces and stuff. It was quite clear. So, okay, Gary. Let's run through these quite quickly. Let's tell us what chance have these players got of being fit for Bournemouth? Kepa?
50-50.
That's not helpful, Gary. Every FPL listener's just turned off.
What can I say? I mean, he's gone to the training camp, but Kante's gone to the training camp. Like literally everyone's gone. Kante's not available.
You're in Dubai, aren't you?
Abu Dhabi, same
Abu
country,
Dhabi.
but yeah. But they've literally everybody has gone. So it doesn't look like Kepa's been playing from the or training from the clips that I've seen. So I'd guess at the moment, probably Mendy, but we've got a friendly on Sunday against Aston Villa. If Kepa plays in that, then you'd have to say, yeah.
Is that out there in the Middle East, is it? Or is that back
somewhere over there? No, somewhere over there, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That seems so ridiculous. World Cup quarterfinal, following day, Chelsea against Villa. Okay. Ben Chilwell. Have we got a timeline yet, Gary?
Not when we first come back. They've said, I can tell you quickly, the ones that they're expecting that might be available are James and Fofana.
Okay.
Chilwell, they expect to take longer. Kante's a lot longer. He's not an FPL asset, but Chukwuemeka's back in training as well. Obviously, Koulibaly is available because he was with Senegal. And
for Senegal, yeah.
Yeah. And the other one that we'll see is Kovacic because at the moment he's fit. So I'm expecting by the time that comes around, he's not fit because that's what happens with him with Chelsea.
And Kante's a way off, is he?
He's well off. Yeah, he's like not expected until February, as far as I'm aware.
I mean, a little bit like what you said at the start. I mean, if you put, I feel like we've discussed this a lot with your team over the last 18 months. Like a with and without Chilwell and James feels like two completely different teams. And Kante still, although it's coming to an end, you still feel like you're playing against 12 men when he plays. So to lose those three from the team is massive, isn't it?
It is, and if you look at the reaction from Arsenal fans now, losing one player, Jesus, that's one player. We've lost James, who's like our main creative outlet, Kante, who's by far our best centre midfielder, if not the best centre midfielder, and then Chilwell, who sort of complements it, and then around that as well, we keep on getting other little injuries. It, like, just means that we haven't had the consistency. It's like we've not been able to play Fofana. Koulibaly was in and out. Kovacic is always injured. Even the goalkeeper manages to get injured. So we've never quite had the continuity. And you know, because you do predictions every week, when you run through the Arsenal team and the Newcastle team, you know what it is. You don't get it wrong. They're able to play the same 11 every weekend, and we've not even been close.
But your manager's got a historical of just changing the team on the whim anyway. We know that from his Brighton period.
That's it. And you put the two together and you get results like losing 4-1 at Brighton.
True. So the Kepa one's particularly annoying because I think most of us would be sticking him in the FPL team where he fit. Bournemouth at home, Forest away. And then Manchester City at home is obviously extremely difficult. But from an FPL perspective, it's kind of a green fixture now as a bonus with the Fulham away game added to that as a double. Then there's Palace at home. Then, okay, there's a trip to Liverpool. But then Fulham at home again. West Ham away. Southampton at home. I've got you best, Gary. I've got you best for the first two when we come back and across all the first 8 game weeks. We should be going into Chelsea players here. You're going to tell us not to, aren't you?
I mean, if I was being sensible, yeah, but I can give you some ideas.
Go on then, give us some ideas.
Well, if Reece James is fit, honestly, that changes everything. I know it's like it's not usual to have a wing back with that much influence, but it's true. Literally, he got injured away at Milan, and the next game was Villa away, and that's when we started playing badly. And it's not all down to Reece James, obviously, but even for example, when we played against Arsenal at home, there was this thing that Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank said about Aubameyang, because he touched the ball like 8 times or something in 65 minutes. And he said, but Haaland does that sometimes with Man City and then he scores twice. We had a moment against Arsenal. Remember, we actually got to the byline, Kai Havertz. And when Reece James did that against Milan, we scored. When Kai Havertz did that against Arsenal, Arsenal got a throw-in. Because I don't know what he did, but he managed to smash it over
somewhat from memory.
Yeah, he picked out a Chelsea shirt. It's just the guy was sitting in the lower East Stand at the time. But this is the difference. It is those kind of moments that you go, especially in a tight game, a big game like Arsenal. It's like you need that extra bit of quality. And how many times do we see Reece get to the byline and he picks out one of our players in the middle, whether it's Sterling, whether it's Aubameyang, and we've completely missed that. So if he gets back in, he's an option.
I mean, at 5.8, if we all thought he was going to start against Bournemouth, then yeah, we're all interested, aren't we? I think that goes.
As far as I can tell, I think it looks like he probably is. I mean, he was trying to get fit for the World Cup, and he's been in training. Him and Fofana are doing slightly separate training, but I think the expectation, they've been with the group and then away from the group, if you know what I mean. So they do some bits with the group and then they go and do their own individual thing. But for example, Kante isn't doing the bit with the group because he's nowhere near, and I don't even think that Chilwell is necessarily. So I think the expectation is that Reece should be back. And then if he's an asset, maybe, people aren't going to agree. I'm just saying that maybe Aubameyang's an asset.
Well, you need to elaborate on that at 8.7 for me, Gary, because I think I'd rather have Kiefer Moore.
And I get that.
Even if he weren't going to start.
But when Aubameyang never got any praise when he scored 3 goals in 3 games. When he scored at home, he scored away at Palace, at home to Milan, didn't play the Wolves game, and then he scored away at Milan. And then the next game was Aston Villa. And there's like this sort of narrative with him. Like I don't think he's been amazing since then. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's been like playing well, but I don't think he's been as bad as everybody's saying. I know that the commentators, one of them was Alan Smith, so he's not going to like him, is he? They were saying, oh, he's not really like got involved against Villa. Then he comes short and lays the ball off, which he's really good at. And they go, oh, he's having to come deep just to try and get involved. And it's like, well, what do you want then? Do you want him to stand up front and do nothing, or do you want him to come?
I understand that with the Harry Kane narrative, but I think it's
his
language style. And obviously, he's got a reputation, unfortunately, now following what happened at Arsenal, that people are going to label that his way. More my concern would be looking at the minutes, Gary. 57 at Villa, 9 at Brentford, 73 against United's fine, 27 at Brighton, taken off 63 against Arsenal, and an unused substitute when you were losing at Newcastle. Can't pay 8.7 for that, mate.
Absolutely, and that was bad. But I'm just thinking of who are we actually going to have that's available? Who's he going to play in those positions? It's either going to be Aubameyang or Havertz, I imagine, that starts in the centre forward position. If it's Havertz, then take everything that I've just said and put Havertz's name in instead. But we need those players around them to create those chances. It's not as if Aubameyang is missing chances. He's not getting chances. And so part of the reason is the supply.
Is the simple one then, if we want an offensive Chelsea player, is it Mason Mount? Most FPL points, 53, 7.5 in midfield.
But what when he's played 120 minutes in the World Cup final? Is he going to come straight back into the team?
I don't think he will at the moment, Gary.
No, I don't think
he'll probably he'll probably come on and miss a penalty in a quarter final, but we'll talk about that in a
bit. But it does depend on what happens. And Mount is probably you would look at it as the best option, but he has been playing a little bit deeper. Potter's style that he seems to like is having a diamond in midfield. And Mount isn't the top of that diamond. He's one of the two either side. It's usually, I think the ideal four is Jorginho at the base, Kovacic and Mount either side, and then Havertz behind Aubameyang. Because that is Havertz's best position. He's off the striker. Now, problem there is that we've got a lot of players like Raheem Sterling who doesn't have a place in that team, which is why he ends up as one of the wingers / wing backs. But in theory, games like Bournemouth, hopefully Nottingham Forest, we're going to control the ball, and having those players a lot further up the field is going to be of a lot more benefit than when you're under the cosh away at Brighton, for example.
The Bournemouth game is 8 days after the World Cup final. You don't actually play till Tuesday the 27th. Do you think players that are involved in the final, even if it's as an unused substitute in the squad, do you think they'll be involved in that fixture? Do you have an instinct on that either way at the moment? Because I've used examples with Tottenham where I think, say, Harry Kane will definitely play, but they might give Romero more time off. I think it will be circumstantial.
And I think somebody like Mason Mount would obviously want to play, particularly as he's not in England's starting 11 at the moment. So the chances are that he would be available, I'd guess.
I guess it might come down to if it's won or not as well, right? Whoever wins is going to want to have a party, which is understandable. So, I mean, if you lose the final, do you just want to come back and play, for example? And we're not just referencing this to England players. We reference it to players of all the nations that are still in.
Yeah, that's right. When if Morocco gets to the final, is Ziyech going to want to come back?
Exactly, mate. Well, I was going to ask you about Christian Pulisic. It's a bloody good player to me for USA against England.
He did. So I mean, there's still something there. Pulisic's he's all right. I don't think he can do it consistently at Premier League level. Personally, I think the injuries have taken their toll on that, and I think it means he's not quite got that little extra bit of explosiveness. And to be honest, international football is different to Premier League football, and the teams that they're playing against set up differently to when Chelsea play against teams. And we're used to playing against low blocks, for example, and he's struggled. And it's not all his fault, to be fair. He doesn't get a good run in the team, and now we play a formation that doesn't have a position for him. He wants to play in a front three. We don't really play a front three at the moment, and he's never going to get that run unless he shows something immediately. It could, in theory, still happen for him if he managed to stay injury free, but I bet he can't. If he gets a little run in the team, he'll get injured again, because we've seen it.
Is Ziyech, is it too burnt with the fan base there?
Probably, to be honest. I mean, you watch him playing for Morocco, he doesn't play like that. He doesn't play with that passion when he plays for Chelsea.
I mean, he worked his nuts off against Spain.
This is it, and exactly. And you see, even there was a I think it was the goal they scored that was like disallowed in the previous game, and he put the free kick in, it bobbled around a bit, it went in, and he's getting like crazy. Whereas when he scores a worldie against Spurs, he turns around as if like, don't know if he's just broken up with an ex and shut the door.
I'd forgotten about that, Gary. I still think it's going over.
Same as Hugo Lloris.
Yeah, that's true. Not that he'd have got it if he did dive, mate.
No. But that's the difference. You watch the way that he plays at Chelsea, and it doesn't mean that it has to be like you can have that style and still like be successful. But the way he's played this season for Chelsea has been like, that's a man that does not want to play for Chelsea. And he's not the only one that I think that you've seen in the World Cup, where there are a lot of players, we don't like it as like club fans, but they love playing for their country. That to them, that is the absolute pinnacle, and you can understand why. It's a World Cup; it should be the pinnacle, but they don't recreate that for their clubs for various reasons. And I think with him, it's probably gone too far. And I think there's other clubs that will buy him.
I think it's understandable in many cases that players will feel a greater attachment to their nation and their club. I think that's pretty common, and especially for a nation like Morocco's obviously not made it this far before. He's obviously a massive, massive deal.
I've got nothing against him for doing it. That's it. Why would he have any attachment to Chelsea versus Morocco? It's like, nah. He's not, is he? He's going to be more attached to Morocco.
No, I know what you're saying. You just want him to play for Chelsea like he's played for Morocco. I get
exactly.
that. It's probably the same with Pulisic and USA as well. No, I get that. Maybe Raheem Sterling and England as well. We'll come back onto him maybe, because I want to get Neil in. And having heard all that, Neil, and I know we're a couple of weeks away from FPL thinking, but 2 great fixtures for Chelsea, arguably 8. You've got a double game week in there as well. Has that cleared your mind to, I want that Chelsea player? Has any of that help at all, listening to that as a neutral?
I mean, I've been keeping a real eye on Reece James, obviously. I mean, we all have. I think I had one eye on, was Kepa likely? I think I had him in my first sort of one of the drafts I did. But other than that, I mean, is there a huge... Just because, like you said, Potter likes doing weird things sometimes, so it's hard. And if you're gonna rest players that may come back a little bit jaded from the World Cup, you're gonna, and I say this with respect to my own club, your Bournemouth at home is probably one of the games where you might be like, well, do we need to risk X and Y, whoever it is, right? So there is an air of caution there against us and Forest. If you don't need to risk that player if he's 95%. You've got the depth to probably beat us without Mount or whoever it may be that comes back. That said, we do love playing at Stamford Bridge, so I just want to put that one out there.
Go on, elaborate on that, Neil.
So I think out of the last 4 times we played there, we've won at least twice, and I think drawn once. We, famously the Glenn Murray corner.
Just about over the line.
Over the line.
I was watching that on the train coming back from somewhere. I can't remember where we played, but it was, the whole carriage was like, what is going on here? Was that one of Mourinho's last games, Gary? Is that right? Yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
It was, because the Bournemouth fans after were chanting that we've got the special one for Eddie Howe. And then obviously the Gosling VAR goal as well, which I nearly ended up on the pitch from the top of the away end celebrating.
That's only about 10 feet anyway, mate.
Still, but yeah. So we do like playing at Stamford Bridge for whatever reason. I always joke with Chelsea mates that that we are a bit of a bogey team, I think.
No, it's interesting. Obviously, my team has a terrible record at Stamford Bridge, and it is a psychological barrier all the time. So I think if you, as a fan, if you have them things in your mind, it definitely helps. What about Bournemouth players, Neil? Because here's an interesting stat for you. Mason Mount is Chelsea's highest scoring FPL player so far on 53 points. Tavernier has more. Billing has more. Solanke has more. Got 3 Bournemouth players got more FPL points than any Chelsea player. We're looking at the wrong team. You've got players there we know that are going to start, and they're good enablers.
And but I've been banging the Solanke drum since day one as that enabling forward. particularly with when Mitrovic has kind of come in and out due to injury. I know Solanke had a bit of an injury as well, but the fact is Solanke will play against Chelsea, and we can score goals. We've consistently scored goals generally this year. We've let more in at the other end, but we have been scoring. I think Tavernier, unfortunately for him, the World Cup came at just the wrong time. It really felt like he was really starting to roll. But I
thought he was going to say getting the squad, Neil. Like it came too early.
No. I'm not getting that far ahead of myself.
Is he English?
Yes, I believe so.
Just checking.
No, it's the Solanke for the next World Cup. That's my drum next. But no, I think that break perhaps came at just as he was starting to hit a bit of a run of form. But I do think he was playing with a confidence towards the end, so he could be an interesting enabler as well. And I was just having a look as well at those injuries. So Neto is meant to come back, just to loop back. Brooks is not a million miles away. I'm not saying we should put him in at FPL straight away, but again,
they're going to be so careful with him, surely, mate.
Yeah. So, but it's just one to keep half an eye on.
Yeah.
And Lloyd Kelly is not a million miles away as well, which should shore us up at the back. Not that our centre-backs have done badly in his absence.
The problem for Billing and Tavernier is we've got players like Andreas Pereira and Leon Bailey.
Yeah.
That otherwise, we'd be talking about these guys a lot more, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Exactly that. That they're a little bit more expensive, but actually they're perfectly reasonable assets to have in your team. If you want to be doing other things. And I think that's the real benefit of owning Bournemouth players at the moment. Do you go into any one Bournemouth game expecting them to score you 6-10 points, whatever it may be? Probably not. But you might expect them to, every couple of games, like Solanke, he might score one every 2 or 3 games. But he's enabled you to have your the two strikers that you really, really want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with that. I mean, I'm just looking again in a comparison with Pereira, who obviously is cheaper as well. I was looking at midfielders priced at Billings area, 5.3 and below. Xhaka's actually out in front, 62. Tavernier and Pereira, 61 points. Billing, 59. Willock, 56. Dewsbury Hall, 50. Bailey, 48. So, they're in that company. If you had to get Tavernier or Billing, where you going with it?
Tavernier at the moment, just because of the set piece aspect. I know he stepped off them a little bit for Lewis Cook, but I do suspect that will now come back. Now he's hit a bit of form, and he might be feeling it a little bit more.
30 points across his last 2 games as well.
Yeah.
Admittedly, you've scored 6. We're not expecting you to score 3 in every game, but it's very involved. He's got 5 attacking returns in the 2 games.
Yeah.
And there was an assist against us the week before as well.
And that's the thing. They're not all goals or all assists. He's got that real nice mix as well, which shows he's in the right areas to be getting those attacking returns. I think he had the most dribbles as well. Not that really means very much, but he's on the ball a lot and he's creating.
Yeah, I think at 4.9, that's very interesting. I would still struggle to pick him over Pereira because they were obviously part of that double with Chelsea now as well. You think, it's 0.3 saving. They've got Palace and Southampton, then the double, whereas you've got Chelsea away, Palace at home, and United away. And I think if I'm starting with this player, I'm still going with Pereira, unfortunately, because of those first few fixtures you have. Then you have a little bit of, I was going to say a kind of run, but it's not really, is it? Because Brentford away is a challenging game for most teams. Forest at home feels like it's going to be key. Then you've got a trip to Brighton, home to Newcastle, and then a trip to Wolves, also possibly going to be quite key. Do you look at that run and think, oh God, where's the points? Or does it look attractive to you?
I think it has to look it has to look okay because, we've got a lot of disruption in terms of we might play. So just looking ahead into like April and March, April, May, like we've got in April, you've got Fulham at home, Leicester away, then a Spurs. So we have a lot of that where we'll have 2 or 3 good games and then a big one. So you kind of have to look at where you might have, quote unquote, a slightly easier run. I know Newcastle and Brighton are absolutely not easier, but they're easier on paper than Arsenal and Chelsea in theory.
Are we saying Chelsea is more difficult than Newcastle at the moment? Gary, do you want to jump in on that? Or
at the moment, no, Newcastle's more difficult than Chelsea.
But, I mean, when you're looking pre-season, I suppose you would have said that.
It does feel like pre-season now, though, doesn't it? It's just the second one.
And Newcastle is always going to be an interesting game because that'll be Eddie Howe's return to Dean Court as well.
Of course.
So anything could happen there. Like,
yeah, my concern on Tavernier, I've just said, is kind of like a comparison to Pereira. Otherwise, I think it'd be very interesting. Your fixtures right till the end of the season are never. Oh my God, they've got great 4 fixtures. Like when we bought Solanke for that period, and I ended up keeping him for the final 3. That period, I think, it was 9 to 12, maybe. You really identified that's a great 4. You don't have that again. It doesn't come round. And it might be towards the end of the season that Chelsea and Manchester United, who you have quite late again, it might be that they've got nothing to play for and they become perhaps easier fixtures, maybe. But yeah, you have like Forest gets dipped in between Brighton away and Newcastle at home and Manchester United and Brentford away. Like, this doesn't feel like a great run of fixtures. And that's the only thing that put me off. But he's consistent and he's done absolutely fine for me, Neil, as you told me he would. So I've no complaints, and he'd certainly be under consideration. I think Tavernier only goes in he's probably a regular sub if I go for him, I think. And then maybe should I go cheaper is the honest answer. But like Pereira, what a great option to have. I just don't see me picking him in many of them fixtures coming up, mate.
Yeah, and maybe he's a consideration if someone wants to do something a little bit different because of maybe where they are in position. Like, okay, Pereira is cheaper, but if everyone's got him, you know, if people are doing all those maths and stuff, maybe. I do think the other consideration looping back is who are we going to bring in? Because my knowledge of the new ownership group, they like to make a splash. Every team they've taken over, they do a big thing. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna go out and get, you know, an Mbappe like Newcastle fans thought they might, but I think it will be a forward option on probably a winger, so that will affect things, and I suspect we'll move quite quickly on that because the new ownership will want to, you know, come in and make a big noise.
On that, I mean, because that's quite relevant as well. I think when we're picking our teams now, we have to consider that who's likely to do business in January or not. Are you expecting yourselves, Gary, to be doing stuff?
It sounds like we probably are, but we're still arranging things sort of behind the scenes. I don't know where we would be desperate right now, but we need to sign whoever it is. It doesn't sound like Todd Burley's boy Ronaldo is going to come.
You're upset about that, aren't you?
I've said it's not that I want Ronaldo, but I wouldn't be against it. Personally, like, we've struggled to score goals. If he's got the motivation where he's like, I want to prove people wrong. If he's going, I want to have one final crack at the Champions League. And this is a man that can do things like on his own. There's a lot of things he can't do, but there's a lot of things he can do. 6-month contract, and we go, whatever happens in the summer, you're gone.
Yeah, but you weren't prepared to offer 200 million a year, were you?
And absolutely no. And I stand by them for that. No.
Do you just there's no point talking about it any further because I think we know he's likely to head out that way. Mm-hmm. Do you not rate Breuer?
I do. He's become sort of overrated of how well people's memory of what he did at Southampton has been augmented kind of thing. He wasn't actually. It's not as if he was scoring every week for Southampton. I don't know how many league goals he scored, but it wasn't a huge number. And he wasn't even in the team for half of the season. He would get in a little bit, then out a bit. And then he went on a little run and everyone's like, oh, he'll be back at Chelsea. And obviously he is. But he didn't really carry that on towards the end of the season. It's not that he's bad. I mean, he played at Spurs and he was brilliant. I
was just going to say, he played against us in January and he was outstanding, mate.
Yeah. So there's definitely talents there, but he's obviously still a young player. He's never going to, you're not expecting him to have the consistency at this age. And he doesn't have it. He's not, we can't go, right, he's going to just lead the line now for the rest of the season.
I don't know. I think you could do worse, mate, than give it a try for a few games. But
He will get a few games.
I think part of you buying might be dependent on moving some on as well. I get the impression that if Ziyech is going to stay around, is he going to go? If he moves somewhere, that frees up a spot potentially in the squad on that. Gary, if I said to you now, right, you've got to have 3 Chelsea players for game week 17. Name them.
Reece James, because I think he'll probably be back. I'd have to see who actually plays in these friendlies. I said for me, I'd go Aubameyang, and then possibly Fofana if he looks like he's going to be back, because he's quite cheap as a defender.
4.3, isn't he?
Something ridiculous like that. And I was thinking, if you're not sure who's going to play out of the 2 goalkeepers, but if Fofana's fit, he's going to play, because also he's the one that will play if Thiago Silva doesn't play. And now he's one. If he gets to the World Cup final, I can't imagine he's going to play at home to Bournemouth.
I think, is it fair to say Kepa is first choice if he's fit in goal?
I don't know, to be honest, because we haven't actually really had them both fit for that long. Kepa got his little run, and then Mendy came in, and Mendy's done all right, to be honest. Mendy was bad at the start of the season. He hasn't been that bad. I do think Kepa is probably his preference, but if we start the first 2 games, I say that Kepa's not available and Mendy does all right, I don't think he changes it. I don't think he's going to go, I want Kepa back in for Man City at home.
And I take it from what you're saying, if you were to play a back 4, you're saying Fofana and Silva would be his first choice.
I guess so, yeah.
Or is Koulibaly part of that?
No, I don't think he's a huge fan of Koulibaly, to be honest, because he's taken him out a couple of times because he's needed resting, but sometimes it felt like they might have lowered the threshold for where he needed a rest, and they just thought, I don't want to play him. But I said, when we played against Brighton, he didn't play, and this was like the equivalent of when you were saying about this 4.5 midfielder, this one is all pretty good. You don't put them all in your team, do you? Because that's never going to work. Well, this is what we did at Brighton when we've got Chalobah and Cucurella and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. And then I know Kepa's all right.
He's had a bit of a crisis of confidence, Cucurella, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah, massively. I think the pressure is getting to him. I think this break has probably done him really good. I think
it's a strange one though, because he knows the manager and stuff, right? You would have thought Potter coming in couldn't have been bad for him.
No, but it's still just completely different, isn't it? Playing for Chelsea, and
I get that.
You can whoever you play, the reactions that you're getting from fans, even there'll be a lot more stuff that's on Twitter. You can have a game where you think you've done all right, and then someone's going to make a stupid compilation and say, "Oh, whoever disaster class," and all of this stuff. And it's sometimes players get they get wind of this kind of thing. It doesn't happen as much when you're at Brighton, but it does happen when you're at Chelsea, and especially now that he has started playing badly, it's got worse and worse and worse. I think also what's going to help is that Potter's had this time with these players to implement his ideas, because he'd had to switch things mid-season. We'd had to switch from a back 3, which he wants to play, to a back 4, which he didn't. Then we switched back again. I think now we've hopefully had a bit of time to work on things with a lot of players, and obviously Cucurella has been there the whole time.
Neil, one Bournemouth if you had to only have one.
Solanke, I think.
You'd go that over Tavernier, yeah?
Yeah, just because of, like you said, the enablers in midfield, there are cheaper options, but with the still unknown aspect of Mitrovic, is he gonna, with his foot and all of that, I suspect he's fit, but who knows?
I think Mitrovic is going to be hugely popular, isn't he? That, again, compare that Pereira and Tavernier, it's the same thing, isn't it? Palace away, Southampton at home, double. I mean, Mitrovic will be extremely popular, especially, obviously, Serbia's out, aren't they? So you'd think there's a little bit of break. Did he score twice in the tournament or once? I mean, the header he got against Switzerland was great. He's one of the best in the world, I think, in the air, actually. Yeah, but Dom's a great choice. You were nodding quite strongly as well, Gary. Is he a big consideration for yourself?
Well, he's definitely going to want to score at Stamford Bridge, isn't he?
Of course,
he came from our youth team.
Yeah,
that's right. So if I was going to pick one of them, that's it. That's who I'd go for.
Okay. It's over 2 weeks away, but a correct score prediction for the game, please, Gary.
2-1 to Chelsea.
And for yourself, Neil?
I'm going to go 2-1, but to Bournemouth.
Yes, mate.
Just because it's down the bridge.
Clip this, boys. Hold it for the 28th of December. I'll go 3-1 Chelsea. I've not got much trust in you defensively, Gary. It's a nightmare because I think like if Kepa, James come through over these next couple of weeks and look like they're going to play, they're going in, I think. And I tempted arguably, even if England maybe get beat on Saturday, tempted maybe even to just punt Mason Mount for a few weeks. Actually, he's at a value you can move it to a few places. Talking of which, Gary, we'll come to you first. It feels almost remiss not to mention it. How are you feeling about the big England game on Saturday?
I've sort of, I don't know why, I'm not really like that kind of nervous. I'm thinking
you will be when you see Mbappe get the ball, mate.
I know, but I think with these, I just like getting involved and going like, "Fuck it, what will be." Like I've been back in Southgate the whole time. I'm still back in Southgate. I'm just sort of like getting behind England and not really thinking too much into it. Like I don't know, it's not quite the same as like club football in that respect. I don't think of like all the behind the scenes stuff.
Back 3 or back 4 for you? What would you prefer? Not what will he do? What would you prefer?
What would I prefer? Probably a back 3.
And who would you leave out? I'm assuming that would be Trippier to come in, I guess.
Yeah, it would have to be, and you play Walker as the right centre back.
Yeah.
But then, to be honest, though, if you're doing that, you might as well have played a back 4 because, like, if you're playing Trippier, you'd then be asking him to play really far back. Is that what they're going to do?
Well, it'll be back 5, wouldn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, that's what it would have to be. So he's not really a wing back, is he? He's just like a right back with a right centre back. So actually, I'd have no problem with him playing a back 4 because it's still probably, in both of those scenarios, it's still Mbappe against Kyle Walker. It's just you might have Trippier there. But once Mbappe is the wrong side of Trippier, he's not catching him, is he?
No. I'm not sure Kyle Walker is either, to be totally honest.
No, that's why you just want him to start goal side of him and then he's got half a chance.
Neil, how you feeling about it, mate?
Cautiously optimistic. I think we are one of the few teams that France should look at as, okay, they could beat us here. I think France are the favourites, but I do think that we haven't got a negligible chance here. I don't think France are miles ahead. I think it would just come down to Mbappe, right? If we can contain him or he doesn't play at 100%, I think we'll win. But you just can't discount the fact that Mbappe could single-handedly win them that game.
It's worth saying as well, there's obviously been so much fact. He's not the only good player they've got, right? I mean, Giroud is phenomenal in the penalty box. Griezmann's been playing really well in this deeper role. Dembele flatters to deceive, but he could definitely burn up Luke Shaw on the other side as well for pace. There is a danger of that we forget about these other great players they've got.
Sure, but Giroud or Kane, who would you rather have?
We've done this one on Patreon, Neil, and we'd have 7 England players in the combined team. So, it doesn't mean we're going to win.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I think outside of Mbappe, man for man, it's not unfair to compare the teams. They just do have that one player and a fabulous player. But I think if we can work out, and Southgate is fairly, he's conservative enough that he may be able to work out something.
Neil, how many Bournemouth players would you put in the Chelsea team?
In the Chelsea team?
Yeah.
None, probably.
You just tipped Bournemouth to beat Chelsea, mate.
But it's not the...
Exactly, it's not played like that.
Yeah. No, I know, but I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think if we can contain Mbappe, I think we've got an outstanding chance. Certainly as much.
Anyway. And would you go back 3 or back 4?
Back 4. I think we've got to... if I was the manager, I would set up positively and be like, they've got to worry about us as much as we should be worrying about them. It's easy for us to say we've got to contain Mbappe, but they've got to contain Kane and Bellingham as well. Like, you've got to look at it, be positive, be proactive. And
Foden and Saka, yeah.
Well, exactly. You've got to look at it like we're here to win the game, not to stop France winning the game. And you entrust that your forward players can win you that game.
I think I would be back 4 as well. And I think Gareth might be. All I'd say is, if he goes with a back 3, I'm not going to flinch about it. I'll just be, that's the choice he's made. Here we go. And let's get on with it. I'm okay with whatever he does with it, I think. I'm at that stage now. As much as stick he gets, I trust him. He knows better than me. He'll make the call that he thinks is best, and it'll work or it won't work. But yeah, really looking forward to it. It feels like it's starting now. It feels like we've not had a build up to this. I think this gap from Sunday Senegal to Saturday France has got that kind of 6-day period, whereas that was like as long as it was from Premier League finishing to tournament starting. This feels like we've got a whole week to think about how badly Mbappe is going to destroy us, and it's got us excited for it. No, we've got a good chance. Thanks so much, guys. Loved that. I said it wouldn't be an hour. It has been. Gary, where can everyone follow you on the Bird app?
At Phantom Anto, and I'll try and let you know if Kepa's going to start or not before we play Bournemouth.
We can't wait, mate. And Neil?
At AFCBNG.
Good stuff. Thank you both so much. I don't know which clash of the correspondence is next. That's the honest answer. But I can tell you, still to come before game week 17, Palace versus Fulham, McTavius and the Tinkermen, Arsenal versus West Ham, 3-5 Who, and FPL Sky Addict, Leeds versus Man City with FPL Tactician, FPL Pringle, and Manchester United versus Nottingham Forest with Is My Cat Playing and FF Scout _ Mark. I should have just said Mark Southerns, really, shouldn't I? I'll be back with the breakfast stream tomorrow, slightly later start time of 11 a.m. UK time. Join me for that if you can. Otherwise, thank you very much to Gary and to Neil. Very best of luck. Cue music, please, man child.